Tonight, a hunt is underway for whoever sent a series of packaged pipe bombs to a host of Trump critics and Trump targets, at least verbally. This morning, former Vice President Joe Biden and actor Robert De Niro became the latest to join the list of bomb recipients, along with Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, former head of the CIA, Obama AG Eric Holder, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and liberal donor George Soros. A total of 10 bombs were sent in all. The disturbing trend prompted Donald Trump, at least for a moment, to change his tune.
In these times, we have to unify. We have to come together and send one very clear, strong, unmistakable message that acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
But top Democratic leaders weren't buying the president's rhetoric. In a joint statement, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi said his words, quote, ring hollow based on his past statements, and they might have had a point.
Obama is the founder of ISIS. The founder. Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. Nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
Well, I think Brennan's a very bad guy, and if you look at it, a lot of things happened under his watch.
Maxine Waters, a very low IQ individual.
To his credit, the president did not invoke any of these rants at a rally last night in Wisconsin. Instead, his crowd did it for him before he took the stage. Lock her up hardly sounds like unity to me. Trump's own restraint didn't even last 24 hours. By this morning, he had punched back at his favorite scapegoat, using nearly all 280 characters provided by Twitter. Quote, a very big part of the anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting in the mainstream media that I refer to as fake news. It has gotten so bad, he tweeted, and hateful that it is beyond description. Mainstream media must clean up its act fast. So with the blame game in overdrive, joining me are Jack Levin, co-director of Northeastern's Brutnick Center on Violence, just released a new book. It's called The Allure of Premeditated Murder. Jack, it's great to see you again.
Thank you.
Jennifer Nassours, former chair of the Mass GOP, now the COO of Reflect Us, a bipartisan, female-focused political organization. Hey to you, Jennifer.
Yep.
And Gautam Mukunda is a Harvard Kennedy School fellow and author of Indispensable When Leaders Really Matter. Good to see you, too. Let me start with you. Is Trump, at least in your estimation, responsible for inciting or creating an environment in which this kind of violence can happen?
I don't really think you can doubt it. It is unprecedented in American history to have the President of the United States urging people to beat up a protester to his rallies, saying he'll pay the legal fees of anyone who does that, urging police violence on his opponents. We've never seen anything like this in the United States. We've seen things like it in lots of other countries. This is very common. And violence from the leader's supporters is a pretty normal. I'll say this. I think anyone who studies this stuff has been expecting something like this to happen.
Do you buy it? I'm sorry. Do you buy it, Jennifer, or no?
No, I
Why
don't.
not?
I don't, because, listen, Donald Trump is out there, and he's just spewing rhetoric. It would be like someone watching Law and Order or CSI or even Grey's Anatomy and saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to take a cue from that, and I'm going to go do the same act.
But they're not President of the United States. He's President of the United States.
You know what, but he's President of the United States. He's not sending out a mission. He's not saying go and send pipe bombs.
But I was at Comet Ping Pong Pizza in Washington right around Inauguration Week. A few months before, a guy from the Carolinas had shot a weapon inside the restaurant after he read Mike, the son of General Flynn, talk about a pedophilia ring that Hillary Clinton had in the basement. A guy on the Southwest flight the other day groped a woman and says, the president says it's okay. And most recently, Jim Acosta from CNN is at a rally, that Montana rally, where Gianforti, the body-slamming congressman, was, and a person walks up to Acosta and goes like this, with his finger across his throat. That's not Trump, at least incited?
No, absolutely not. These are crazy people who are taking actions into their own hands. They're listening to rhetoric that is not meant to be violent. It's not meant to be an action to be carried out by anyone. And these people have mental illnesses. You, I, any of us would not do any of these things.
Okay, you can settle this right here, Jack. Who's right?
Well, probably both. I think it's very important to hold responsible those leaders in society who use hate rhetoric, because they are our idols. They are the people that we use for our own everyday behavior. So hate rhetoric at the top produces hate crimes at the bottom.
So where's the part where she's half right?
Well, I think it's more than just rhetoric. It takes a person who might be mentally ill. It may take a person who has suffered some catastrophic loss.
But is that person more likely to do something because of what he or she hears?
I don't think there's any question about that.
Speaking of hearing, if I can, I want to play something for you, though, too. 3 of the people who received these pipe bombs are Joe Biden, Eric Holder, and Maxine Waters. I want you to hear what they had to say. Here are the 3 of them.
When a guy who ended up becoming a national leader said, I can grab a woman anywhere and she likes it, when we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them. We don't do anything illegal, but we got to be tough. And we got to fight.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them.
Are they inciters of violence, too, like you say the president is?
I don't think that harassing people in restaurants is a wise tactic, although it's a democracy. You're allowed to do these things, I suppose. But it's not inciting violence. It's not saying Greg Gian Ford, who, remember, pleaded guilty
this is
of
the
criminal,
congressman
of Montana, who pled guilty of criminal assault. It's not the president of the United States saying, oh, he's my kind of guy. And I find it particularly ironic that we'd hear that, oh, well, it's like somebody playing Grey's Anatomy. What did the Republican Party spend a generation telling us about? Oh, violence in rap music, violence on television.
But I don't want to do...
When the president does it, it doesn't matter.
I don't want to do one of those what about things. I want to stay with this for a second. I don't think the person, at least my assessment, maybe you can deal with this, sitting at home is parsing words to say, well, Maxine Waters didn't say when you go to a restaurant, push back. She didn't say punch them. She said the impression one gets is fight back. Fight. I mean, doesn't this create some of the same stuff?
I think so. I don't think it's just Trump. I think that we've seen a generation of violence in our culture that it gets expressed at the very top in all of our political leaders. I've seen it especially in the last decade. We've seen a loosening of the rules of society. And let me just say this one thing.
Sure.
It's not the first time in recent history. Right after 9/11, we saw a spate of anthrax spores being...
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if for some reason we've seemed to have forgotten that most of those went to liberals, Democrats, 2 senators. 5 people died as a result, and we never found the culprit.
Can I move to one other thing here? About a second and a half after this broke, predictably, Rush Limbaugh is doing the false flag thing. This is not some right-wing nut who was incited by President Trump. It was some left-winger trying to pose as a right-winger. It's the sort of the Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh playbook. Do you buy that either?
No. And let me say... I think that the president is wrong when he talks the way he talks. I don't think that it incites everyday people to go out and act upon...
I wasn't asking if it was everyday people. I'm asking, even if they're as crazy as you say, and even if they're as close to violence, does this not push them over the edge? And you say no, he says yes.
Well, no, I think if you're crazy, you're crazy. You're going to go out and you're going to do something bad, regardless if it's, Jim Browdy or if it's Donald Trump.
I'm not doing anything.
but I mean, I think, here's the problem, Jim. Here's where we've come in American politics today, is that the sides, the fringes, have pulled us so far apart that everyone hates each other so much that this can actually go on.
I want to ask you about the false flag thing. And based on history, is this almost ever true? I know it's a ploy, but is it ever true that somebody is doing the violence to implicate somebody from the other side of the political spectrum? Does that happen?
I've never heard of it before. I mean, I'm sure it happens. But what, 1 in a million?
There are no credible cases in American history. Putin may well have done it in the with the Russian bombings in Moscow about a decade ago.
But we're not in Russia.
Yeah, there are no credible American cases.
So, look, we have to give a little time to President Trump's thesis, which is after that calmness and that unity thing, it's the fake news, it's the mainstream media. Can any of you, starting with you, make a case that whatever the media has done to candidate Trump and to President Trump might have contributed to this environment?
I think the extent to which the media went pretty far in enabling Trump's rise, as Les Moonves said, it might be bad for America, but it's great for my ratings. Well, we found out what kind of a person Les Moonves was, so I guess that reveals a lot. But only to the extent that they didn't treat Trump as what he was. They treated him as a freak show who was saying things that were going to cause, that were going to change the American discourse in a way that will be permanently toxic.
But that's surely not what he meant.
No, it's the exact opposite of what he meant.
That he meant. Has the media contributed to it in its coverage of Trump and Trumpism?
Yes, I think so, because I think the media is obsessed with the ridiculousness that comes out of the president's mouth, and they cover every single thing he says, and they write about it, and they talk about it.
So the media covers him too well? That's the problem?
No, I think that the media is so Trump-obsessed by him saying ridiculousness that the press just keeps going on and on after it and never gives anyone one moment of peace and rest not to listen to the craziness.
Is the press partly culpable here?
Why doesn't he just stop saying ridiculous things? Every day he tweets another ridiculous remark, and it's covered because he's the president.
We only have 30 seconds. I want to ask you one last thing. Let's assume you are right in terms of this language pushing somebody over the edge to do something like this. If Donald Trump had stood up last night and not only said unity, but had listed the names of all the people and said something like, I don't agree with these 10 people on virtually anything, but I want to stand by them because this is totally unacceptable, whether it's Hillary Clinton or it's me. Would that have an effect on people like that?
Yes.
It would.
I do think so. I think that's what he should have done long ago before we saw this tragedy.
We got to go. Jack Levin, it's great to see you. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
The Allure of Premeditated Murder. Not to me, but I assume to some. Good to see you, Jennifer.
You
Go
too.
from thank you so much, all three of you.